Welcome to MSA Weekly. I'm Bill Sammons with Kevin Short, and Mid-South Audio is what MSA stands for, in case you're first time here. We wanted to follow up on an email or a phone call that you got a couple of weeks ago. It was a young man, was he a DJ?
Yes.
And he bought a speaker online, and when he got it, he was looking for a place to plug it in, and he called you for help.
And we featured this in a previous episode, but yeah, the gist of it was the speaker was sold, was discontinued, and full warranty. He got it on, he got a deal. He opens it up out of the box, and there's only like 2 places to put a jack, and he had never. In his entire life experience, he had never seen a passive speaker.
Okay.
Where you needed an amplifier, an external amplifier to drive it. All the speakers he had been powered, so he couldn't figure out where to plug it into the wall or plug his XLR cable in. So that's what we did. We did an episode on that. And anyway, today we had a reaction about that. Someone sent me an email and said, I got a funny story. I read, saw this episode, and then this happened to me. And so then I wrote him back. I said, we should chat about this, because it was a fairly lengthy email. And anyway, he called. And so the gist of this story is there is once upon a time, but it sounded like I was going to, there was a 3-piece band that was playing, and they were asked by a restaurant slash club, whatever, to do a vertical this summer, but they wanted the management wanted to make it a 4-piece and add a guy that was playing there doing a solo, like merge these 2 together for a Tuesday night performance and do every Tuesday night during the summer. So the 3-piece band, which was all a group of young musicians in their 20s. We're excited about it. They contacted the solo guy, which was like my age. This is the guy that called me.
30.
He said,
he's 30.
He's 30. Yeah,
Okay.
He's late 50s, early 60s. So he said, look, they contacted me. We both play there, and he said, we do have kind of similar, song list. And he said, I hadn't played in the band in 10 years or 15 years. He said, so I thought this would be fun. So he said, we got together to rehearse, and the rehearsal went well, and they have a second rehearsal, and it was before this second rehearsal, he saw our episode of MSA Weekly that had that story that we just told about. And I don't know if he was driving or what he was doing, watching them, not
So
advocating that. Yeah. Anyway, he gets to the rehearsal, and they're talking about it, and they're all excited about doing this gig every Tuesday night. And he said, guys, I've seen you play. We both play in the smaller room in this place, and he said this is going to be in the big area. I got a guy that did sound for me for years, and I kind of mentioned this to him. If you would be agreeable to it, we could get him to mix. Okay. And he's got his own gear, and it's bigger gear than what you're using or what I'm using. I think it would benefit us both. I know there's some financial considerations here, but what do you think about that? And they thought they had actually never performed with a sound person. So they had always done it themselves.
Yeah.
And so they thought that was a great idea. And he said, yeah. And he said, so the rehearsal was going on. And he said, he just kind of mentioned between songs. He said, I know you guys use an iPad. He said, but he'll probably mix in the back of the room, and he'll bring a snake. And he said, they all gave him a look. And he kept on talking. And he said, what do you mean? And he said, well, he'll bring a snake, and then he can be in the back of the room. They said, are they going to allow him to bring a snake in the restaurant?
No kidding, really.
And he said, yeah, I mean, a snake, a cable. And
Right.
They had no idea. They'd never, ever heard that term.
Huh.
And he thought that was hilarious. And
Yeah.
and maybe there are a lot of people that haven't heard that. For those who haven't, a snake is just a long microphone cable with multiple cables that allows you to mix from the back of the room. And typically, for all of us have done it years ago, you had to run it over the rafters, and it was, or under tables. And now that's been replaced with Wi-Fi and iPads and that kind of thing. But it took these other guys by surprise, and they thought, is this guy a little strange? He wants to bring a boa constrictor to the gigs or whatever, sit back there in a basket with him.
So is that an age thing? Or
I think in their experience, it's never been like there's a lot of bands that don't even use snakes anymore, because it's kind of like gone by the wayside, Not completely, but it just, in their experience, they had no reason, in 15 years ago, if you said you're going to mix with an iPad over Wi-Fi, people would have thought you were crazy.
Right.
You might as well be on the moon.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I thought that was kind of funny. It was a follow-up to a previous one. So the gist of this is we like to get comments. And questions, Kevin at midsouthaudio.com is the best way to do that. Or you can comment. Max got a lot of comments on his episode, actually in the comment section. So you can do that and we'll address those. If you have questions, we'd be happy to take them. But I just thought that was kind of a funny little anecdote.
And it really helps us to stay mindful that people from every experience level are watching this program.
Exactly.
Are coming in for a quote on equipment and so on. So you kind of got to keep that in mind. And the technology changes so fast for us older people sometimes. Well,
it does. This happened just this week. We had a band that came in, had not played for years, and we're going to have a reunion. And then they decided, you know what? Let's see if we can keep this going.
Yeah.
So they needed to replace all of their gear because it was really old and it had been in storage. And they brought it in here and they had a pretty big pile.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, we're going to be able to replace all this. And the size of what we're going to replace it with, the quality is going to be a lot better, but also just the sheer weight and the mass and the size of it, it's going to fit in the back of their pickup, and they were carrying it around in a 5x8 trailer. I mean, it's amazing how things have changed. And, when you're involved in it, this is 36 years for us. You don't see those changes because they're so gradual. But then when they're that stark and you realize you're talking to 26-year-olds who've never heard of a snake, it's like, whoa, maybe. And then you realize that maybe there's some people that are in our world that need to be educated about that.
Well, if you have a question or maybe you have a good story that you'd like to share, Kevin at midsouthaudio.com, and we'll see you next time on MSA Weekly.